So there was a couple things I talked about last week, and I'm going to follow up on them every week. So the first one, I am tracking a system play, and I mentioned it last week, and it is very mindless and it is very simple. It is very set it and forget it. I said that every single week with the NFL, we're going to be betting, at least I'm going to be tracking, uh, basically paper trading, although I'm doing it in a real account. It's a $20 investment every week. So it's $1.25 over the course of each of 16 games, and it is on the underdog money line. And so starting with $20 last week, we all know quite a few underdogs hit for us. That $20 account is now up to $24.37. Now, if you look at it from a dollar standpoint, and I just did it for the $1.25, everybody has a different risk tolerance and everybody can go into it however you like. But that being said, a little bit over a 20% increase just by mindlessly taking underdogs. And what I'll tell you is last night, Seattle was the dog that was the biggest odds. I think that was at the plus 320 range, but there was nothing really high up there. Most of them were plus 120, plus 160. There was some in the plus 200s. I think Chicago was plus 260. So none of them were huge. This week coming up, there's some 9 and 10 point favorites, which means we get the plus 400 and the plus 330. And so we're just going to keep going with it. I'm going to do it again this week, and every single week I'm going to update it. So the $1.25 money line underdog pool is up to roughly 22% for the week. Then I'm going to talk about the cash management because that's very important. So I mentioned last week that you have a choice to make. You're an investor. You're in this to just grow a chunk of cash through investing in these sports games, or you're in here for cash flow, or you're in here for gambling. So if you're in here for gambling, do whatever the hell you want. Just don't blame me when I go 4-1 and you lose your 5-way parlay. I mean, you can blame me, but 4-1, that's a damn winning week. So. But what I'll say is, so I'm tracking everything. So what's a unit? Everybody's got a different unit, and there's a lot of handicappers out there now, whether you're on TikTok or Twitter. Most sports betting gurus would tell you a unit is your total bankroll divided by 100. So if you have a $100 bankroll, you're $1 better. If you have a $1,000 bankroll, you're a $10 better. I think most of us would say, well, that's not enough. That's not risky enough for me to feel the rush of what's going on. And again, you have to go back and define it. So I've never bought into, $1 is your unit if you got a $100 bankroll. However, I think half of that is an appropriate place to be. It takes a lot to sink the ship. And it also, it does allow for wins. So normally, every season I talk about $10 as the unit, and that's what we're going to do here. So what I have tracked from college week 0 until now is if we started off as a $10 better, and in my unit measurement size, and again, it doesn't make a difference to me if you follow it or not. This is just what I'm doing. So in my unit measurement size, I would divide the total bankroll by 50. So at $500, that makes $10 your starting unit for the week. So you take all the profitability from the week. So week 0 of college, we went 3-0. So you take all that profitability and you divide it by 2. Now, as an investor, you would take half of that profit and use it to press the bets for the following week. You leave the other half of the profit in to grow the bankroll the same way you would grow your bankroll in an investing account, in a day trading account, however it is that you would treat your investments. On the cash flow side of it, you're in this for income. You're in this sports betting to produce income. You can so now you would take that profitability and you take half of that out. Half of that is pay yourself. Pay yourself on Monday morning. If you're only in it for college, you pay yourself on Sunday morning, but you take the money out. Don't worry about Monday Night Football unless you're a gambler. If that's the case, you probably lost your money last night thinking Denver was an easy play. But I don't touch those games. But in any case, you're taking half of the cash out, you're paying yourself. Then you have the remaining 50% profit, and you can either press all of it or you can take half of that and press with 25% of your profit from the previous week and let the bankroll grow. What I chose to do was the 50% cash. And so the model I have right now as an investor coming off of week one, you were pressing your bets to where you are no longer a $10 better. You are, and you have a $528 bankroll coming off of week 0, 3-0 college, because again, there was only 3 games. Going into week 1 of college with no NFL, we had, I believe we were 5-2. So at that point, we're pressing again. Now we're $17 investment. And the bankroll is up to 531. So really the bankroll didn't grow much, but we were able to press our bets successfully. And then the following week, which was week 2 college and week 1 NFL, the press now as an investor is we're going into this next week, $21 investor, and the bankroll is at 558. So our bankroll is up right around 12%. And our dollar amount we've 2x'd it that we're investing per game. So we've grown some bankroll and we're betting bigger dollar amounts. And we're betting bigger dollar amounts as we know what's going on. That's if you're an investor. If you are on the income side of things, the pressing doesn't grow at the same rate, nor does the bankroll. But remember, you're paying yourself. So week 1, coming off of week 0 of college, you would have paid yourself from your $500 bankroll $24 in profit. You're now pressing. You're $14 better for the following week. Your bankroll is up from 500 to 514. So 7% increase in bankroll, 20% increase in your unit size, and then some cash flow. The following week, same amount to be taken out. We went 5-2. The following week, same amount taken out, another $24 removed as cash. We're now pressing. We're pressing another, it's closer to 20% again. We're now betting $14 a game. Instead of as an investor, we would be betting $17 a game. Bankroll's up to 516. So still a nice increase in bankroll, a little bit over, a couple percent. Then as we go into this next week, coming off of the week that we just had, where it was week 2 of college and week 1 of NFL, we are looking at another $31 in profit. And now we've upped our outlay to $17 a game. And our cash on hand is $529. So you can see the difference in approaches, whether you're investing or you're looking for cash. So as cash flow, we've collected $79 for the season thus far. So the cash that's sitting in the account, so we're essentially up in cash, right around $100. So we've removed 20% of what we initially had in bankroll, and we've paid ourselves, and we've also pressed our bets. Now, at any point, you could choose not to press your bets. You don't have to do that. That's a good business model to get to. Ultimately, at this pace, increasing it by 20% every week, you're going to find yourself somewhere around $70 or $80 a game at this time in October, and that's where you want to be. And if you keep paying yourself at the same rate on the income side of things, probably by Halloween you will have paid yourself an entire $500, and you'll have a bankroll for even more. And we do a lot in Wall Street. The core values of this Discord page is options investing. Bunch of like-minded dudes that are just interested in the market and raising some capital. So if you can look at it that way, you're going to find a lot of success. If you take your $500 bankroll and you bet $100 on a game and you lose it, it's just, there's no strategy there, and you're gambling, and that's okay. Like, I have no problem with that. That's just not the logic that I'm trying to get across to everybody. So there is a way to do this, and that's where I'm at with it. I'm going to stop there. Does anybody want to jump in with anything? Questions?
No, I think this is good because, especially for me, like a non-sports enthusiast, Um, it's good that there's still strategy, and I really appreciate you giving the strategy behind the actual money side of it. So it's not just bet on every game, bet $500 on every game, and hope for the best, because more than likely you're going to be poor.
And that's just it. And I appreciate you calling that out. And Chris, you've been very outspoken as a dude that doesn't follow sports very much. You could probably pick winners no better or worse than anybody else in this group just by picking the color of the helmet or the coolness of the logo or the name of the city. I mean, it is possible to pick winners that way. The longevity of your existence and success as a sports bettor, as a professional, is truly how you manage the bankroll. So and there's got to be a process, and you can't get greedy, and you got to look at it as a weekly profitability and everything else. There's fun in the recklessness of gambling. That's just not what I'm in it for. So and it's I could make picks all day long. I mean, the picks I'm posting, that speaks for itself. That's just not what my goals are in speaking to this group and posting. Anybody got anything else? Because I am going to talk a little bit of football.
I'm ready to hear some football because these spreads are crazy this week.
Well, is there anything specific you want to hear before I get into the things that were on my mind? Because you said that like there's something you're after.
Nothing specifically I'm after. They're just all wide spreads, and all the favorites look like they should be big favorites.
Yeah. So they do, and it's so if we're talking NFL, college I have different opinions, but if we're talking NFL, there are some big spreads, and they're very difficult for me to get behind. So when I see anything over 7, typically I run, but you look at anything over 7, and then you look at the division. I mean, I called out Pittsburgh last week for a lot of reasons, but the main reason was, you got a 6.5 or a 7-point spread within the division. So the two games there that jump off the page, first one is Seattle, San Francisco. So it's there is a ton of public money on Seattle. It opened at 7.5, and so this Seattle, San Francisco being at 10 points is crazy in a lot of ways. The other one is Green Bay, Chicago, and I'm going to talk Seattle, San Francisco first. If you go onto, I use CBS Sports. I'm comfortable with it. I know how to click buttons. I just like the way it gets me the information I want, whether it's scores or stats. If you click on the odds on the San Francisco-Seattle game, and you look at spread, Seattle, San Francisco, the line opened at 7.5. Then if you move to the right a little bit, it'll show you that it is now plus 10.5. And it is also showing that the public bet, 64% of the public bet is on Seattle. So this is where it gets interesting. And I'm not saying this is where you choose. This is just how I identify value in line movement before I even go into players, injuries, X's and O's. So if 64% of the bets are on Seattle at plus 7.5, taking the points, that line should move down. That line should move down to 6. It should move down to 6.5. It should move down dramatically. This thing moved the opposite direction. If all the action was on San Francisco at 7.5, all the action, or all the money, I should say, then it would move and make it more unfavorable. That's how these things work. So there's a lot of tickets, but not a lot of money on Seattle. So when you look at this line, only 36% of the public tickets, not dollars, is on San Francisco. Yet the line has moved from 7.5 to 10.5, or from 7.5 to 10. So that tells me one of a couple things. Either there's a ton of money, just a ton of money on San Francisco at 7.5 or 8, and that's what moved it to minus 10, or the house is completely comfortable being exposed at plus 10 Seattle in this scenario. Either side is something to pick apart. So I certainly don't want to be on the side where the house is comfortable with being exposed. And then the other side is, if somebody's got millions of dollars to lay on one of these events, I would like to think that person and their judgment with their millions that got them those millions, probably better than me, and whatever it is I see in X's and O's, or Debo Samuel, or the new quarterback for San Francisco, or any of those things. So before I even get into X's and O's, this game, just run. I'm not touching it. The only logical play here, if I had to, would be laying the points in San Francisco, and I don't like that. I actually like Seattle in this game, just without even breaking things down, just simply because that's a lot of points. Anything over a touchdown in a division game, I want the points. But because of this reverse line movement, this game is a no play for me. It's way too scary. Somebody is in bed with San Francisco, whether it be millions of dollars or the casino's comfortable giving Seattle 10 points. So that one's a run for me. You guys follow that?
Yep.
So Chicago and Green Bay. So here's another one. That's the same exact scenario. The only difference is it opened at 7.5 and it went to 10. 59% on Chicago, 41% on Green Bay. Now, I won't touch this game for a couple reasons, but the main one is I just won't touch a Sunday night football game. I just won't touch it. So from where I sit, I'm not struggling with these large point spreads because I'm not touching them. And it's not because it's 10 points. It's because of where we just went. So we've already identified the Bears-Packers game. That's a double negative to me. That game is Sunday night, and then it's 10 points in the division, and then it's got that reverse line movement. So that game's out the window. We're not touching it. Cool. It just makes my job easier. I got less games to break down. And then we're not touching the San Francisco game because of that. Now let's go to the other one. There's two more. There's Houston-Denver, and then there's LA-Atlanta. Now on the LA-Atlanta, this one is actually very interesting because we're seeing something different. We're seeing 58% of the public on Atlanta. So it was 13.5, and the line dropped. So there actually is some money on Atlanta that has dropped that to 10.5, making it more difficult on the Atlanta bettors that have taken 13.5. I actually really love the Rams in this scenario. It's at LA. They're coming off of a loss. You got a really great coach, good quarterback, just top-notch roster that was just embarrassed on a national stage. You got what a lot of people would argue to be the top corner in football, just got completely torched. So in this scenario, while it's scary to look at that many points, I think if you were going to place this bet, you take the Rams and you lay the 10.5. I am not scared of that game, not even a little bit. When you look at the Houston-Denver, that game is wild movement. 77% of the action is on Houston. And then you look at Denver, only 23% of the action is there. And probably not very much money within the Denver. But where I sit with this game is, and I don't know how to be polite or kind, but the head coach for Denver is such a moron. He is such a moron that I am not going to put my money on either side of this game. I'm not going to touch Denver with a wager at any point this entire season. I feel that he probably insulted the entire locker room, the integrity of the sport, and all of us as fans by how he called that game the other night. And their red zone offense, they had 3 red zone misses. They didn't even come away with points. They left 9 points on the board at minimum. The play calling is atrocious. The way he utilized Russell Wilson is even worse. I think it was an accident that Russell Wilson threw that bomb to Jerry Jeudy that ended up in the end zone. So Denver's not getting my money this entire season. That coach is the biggest moron and disgrace that I've ever witnessed in coaching. So I got a strong opinion there. But as far as those point spreads go over 10, we threw 3 of them out the window, and we like the Rams. We good? All right, I'm going to hit college real quick, and I'm just going to hit a couple bullet points. College right now, and I identify this almost every year. College right now, there's a couple teams that are highly overrated. If any of you have been following me on the Weekend Crunch, on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network in 103.9 New York. Every Saturday night for the last, since week 0, I've given out an underdog that wins outright. And we talk about a lot of different things. We talk more the game, and there's just a very small part of the show where we're talking about the bets. But one of the things that we had talked about was preseason, week 0 and then week 1, about just how miserable and odd some of the rankings were. So I think the rankings in college are starting to fall into place. I think the top 4 is right. I don't think Clemson belongs. I don't think Oklahoma belongs. And then, you just keep cruising down. NC State still doesn't belong, but they don't offend me at 16. Now, when I look at the college spread, I am not a Kansas homer. I could care less about the Kansas Jayhawks, but I'm picking them every week at this point. That feels like our Coastal Carolina this year, and it's going to take about 4 weeks for it to catch up. They're going to need for the spread to adjust. Right now, Kansas is the number 1 scoring team in the country. But I'll tell you what I really like about Kansas, and I'm going to take them this week, and I'm probably going to be giving them a hard look every week going forward. Their coach, and anybody that watched the game, they talked about it a little bit. But Kansas, to start with, had 14 players transfer in. I think most of them are starters. That head coach came from the University of Wisconsin at Whitewater. It's a D3 school. However, in 8 years' time, he only lost 6 games there. And they won 6 national championships in the D3 level in the same 8 years. I understand it's D3. But what is important to know is that is a coach that just doesn't lose. Like, the guy does not know how to lose. And he's bringing that culture. And so far this season, Kansas has they've won as an underdog, 13-point underdog. And then week 1, they covered 30.5 points. I did not post that pick, but I was on it. I called that out on a different outlet. But this week, looking forward, they're going to Houston and they're getting 10. Kansas is running the ball really well. And so it's going to be a reoccurring theme with Kansas. I'm going to be looking at them for first half plays. I'm going to be looking at them in general. They just feel like the team to just get on. And there's a lot of X's and O's there. I've felt for a long time that the University of Kansas has way too good a basketball program to be terrible in football. Most of the good football schools, their basketball program kind of follows, like Bama's in the tournament because their football team is so good. Ohio State, not good at basketball, but they're always in the tournament, and it's probably because they have all the money in the football. So that's important to identify. And then in college, there's another game this week that I'm going to call out. And at first glance, kind of odd looking, but the Washington and Michigan State. A lot of people would look at that and say, why is Michigan State an underdog traveling on the road? And why is Washington laying 3.5 points? That is the same exact scenario. I think Michigan State does not belong ranked, or at least ranked that high. Washington has a transfer quarterback that has carved up Michigan State before. He came from Indiana. They've played each other. He's done well. And I really like Washington in this scenario. And again, just to look at the lines and the movement and where the investments are. This game, I looked at that and boom, right away, I decided I'm going to take a deeper dive into it. But start off as a pick'em. Only 21% of the action was on Washington, and it's now 3.5 points. So again, the casino is perfectly happy to give you the 3.5 on the MSU side, or there's a ton of money, smart money, on Washington. So we're going with that game, and it's going to feel crazy that I'm going to be posting a pick with an unranked team against a number 11. But again, I think this is a false number 11 right now, and I'm following the smart money. That's really what we're doing here. And that's kind of college. That's kind of college, and that's kind of my week. Unless anybody has anything else, I'm going to leave it there. And we're going to track these system plays. We're going to track these investments, and we're going to see where it takes us. And we're off to a good start.